So this morning we're going to run through the various steps of reloading. This is for a 243 Winchester with a 100 grain bullet. Before we start, I'll just go through the bits and pieces I use. You need a holder for your cases, press with various dies. This is quite a nice one because I can mount two sets of dies at the same time. You need a powder thrower. Now the powder thrower, you adjust it so it throws just under the weight you want. You transfer that powder onto the beam scales, which are preset to the amount of powder you want to weigh. That should bring the beam up to just below the zero, and then you use a trickler to trickle up the last little bit to get your load bang on. In this case we're using 38 grains of H414. Now also we're using used cases because they've been used before. These cases were actually bought as bullets fired, and then the cases will be used. As they're used cases, we only need to neck size the case. If you're using cases for somebody else's cases, you need to do what's called a full size the case, but in our case we're just neck sizing. So what we'll do, we'll get a few cases. As they've been used before, we need to check them for signs of stress. Now sometimes you can get a line appear around the base, which can be a sign of stress in the case. Also you want to look for split necks. The other thing is loose primer pockets. If you find some with loose pockets, then you disregard them, but that one looks okay. Yeah, that's fine. We'll just do a few. That's got a crack in it. That one looks fine. Okay. Now the first thing we need to do is to lubricate the cases, else they get stuck in the dies. Various types. This one is a spray. You can get pads that you roll them over. I tend to use the spray. So we don't need too much, just a quick spray, that's all we need. Right, the first job is to re-neck the case and to take the old primer out. So we put it in the press, turn to the appropriate die, down we go. Simple as that. The primer's been removed and the neck has been sized. So we'll run through these. Once you've got these dies set up, they don't need altering a lot. A bit more spray. Okay, so that's our primers removed. The next thing to do, we want to check the length of the case. We need to trim these cases because in the process of being fired the cases will stretch or may stretch. A simple cheap little tool from Lee into the case, spin, and that resets the case to the correct length. There's a little bit of burr there that we take off, and a burr on the outside, and there are various tools you can use for doing this, but I tend to just use a small screwdriver to clean the end of the case. Right, we'll do another one. Grip it in this piece. Oh, by the way, this shaft is changeable and you can get various calibers. That one is longer, that's for a 270. That one is about the same length but thicker, that's for a 308. So when you change caliber, you just need to change that part. See, there's a small amount of swarf coming off there. Clean it. And then just, you can buy a tool for this, but I found this does it just as well. I'll do just another one into there, spin, make sure it's tight. Take off the burr, take off the burr, remove from the case, clean the there, and that's all you do. That's your case ready. Now the next job is to insert the new primer. Now primers are probably the most dangerous part of the operation. They need respect. Don't put them anywhere where it's too warm. Don't get oil over them. Try to keep them separate and only have the ones you need on the bench. Don't tip out loads of them. So we get our primer, we put it in there, lift, what I do, I push it, I relax, spin it round, relax, spin it round. It's very important to check that that primer is below the surface, or certainly level with the surface there. So that one is ready. We'll go through that sequence, but we can, there's your primer, lift, three times and down. Okay, well that's your cases re-primed. Now before we started, I've already set this unit up to throw just under 38 grains. You adjust it, the more you screw this in, the less powder it will throw, and the same if you screw it out, you'll throw more. So you need to throw just under the weight you want. And I just use an old 35mm tube, film tube. That powder's in there now. Pour it into the pan. Let the beam settle, and then just trickle up prickle up until the marks are level. There, simple as that. Right, the next job is to transfer the powder into the shell case, and we use this funnel here. So we take our powder, right. Now I'm going to screw this out. This adjusts the depth that the bullet will be seated, and I've used this previously for another side bullet, so I'm going to open it right out and then creep up on it. So the bullet goes on there, sits on there like so, up, right, so I can see from there that we've got a long way to go, so I'll screw this down a bit. Now what I want is the bullet to be at 2.705 inches, so we're on inches now. Let's see where we are at the moment. .768, so we've got some way to go. .747. .739. .715. Now, this being a micrometer, let's go down 5. So that should be at about 10. We're nearly there. We just want let's take these back, make sure they're correct. 2.7075, let's go there. Here we are, 2.705. Now, normally that's good enough for what I want to do. If you load a few, you will find that that distance will vary. The reason it's varying is this lead tip. It's not that formed that well. The bullet's the right weight, but that isn't the best way to do it. But you can get an attachment like this that screws onto your machine, and you need to put the right piece in there, and what that does, that actually measures the bullet at a certain place there, which will be constant. So don't worry if you're just doing an overall length, don't worry if it varies. You really, if you want to be really super critical, you need to buy one of these, set it up properly, and use it to measure from a point about there. Now, to be honest, for hunting, it isn't that critical. You know, perhaps if you was target shooting or competition shooting, you might need to do that, but for what we're doing, that's perfectly adequate. These group at about an inch at 100 yards, and I can't shoot better than that anyway. So that's one done. So let's carry on and do the other two. Right, we've already got the primer in. Get our powder. Right, that's our powder. Yeah. Into the case. Case. Move the die around. Seat your bullet. Next case round. So there you are, we've got 3 rounds made up and they're pretty accurate. I'm using 100 grain Hornady interlocks. I find these pretty good. There's a minefield when it comes to bullets, some very Nosler which are very expensive, but these do the job for me. So whenever I can get them, these are what I use. The cases, I think, well, they are Winchester cases I'm using here. These in fact weren't ones that I bought as made up ammunition. I bought these, you can buy them by the 50 to 100, depending how you use them, depending how hot the charge is. You'll probably get 10 reloads out of it. If you go to the trouble to anneal the neck, which use a blow lamp, make them cherry red and let them cool down, softens the brass, they'll last a lot longer. I haven't done that as yet, but that's it really. That's as simple as it is. You don't need to spend a lot of money on tools. Your biggest outlay obviously is the press. You obviously need a good set of scales. These RCBS scales are very good. A powder trickler, you could do without this. You could take the powder out and you could tip it in with a teaspoon if necessary to get you started, but that's it really. That's about all there is to it. Always look at the book. In the book it will give you a starting load, it will give you a maximum load. Never exceed the maximum load, and work up slowly and work up in, say, half grain increments towards the maximum loads, looking for signs of pressure on the cases. and you won't go far wrong. I generally find that I'm about a grain under the required or the maximum load. So there you are. Thanks for watching.